and I'm honored to introduce our distinguished guest today, Mr. John Dipens. John is a mobility expert from Holland, CEO of Mobicom, and John has been working for the last, 30 years on transportation issues, on the issues of urban mobility, doing research, doing commercial projects, trying to influence policies in a variety of countries, I imagine, but specifically in Holland, I guess. Hopefully in Russia one day. John will be speaking about his work and about recent trends in mobility. Maybe we can also discuss Moscow and use John's experience to analyze some of the processes that's been happening here. I'd like to thank the library, Dostoevsky Library, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to hold our lectures here. I'd also like to thank the Dutch embassy, thanks to whom this John's visit to Moscow has been possible. And last but not least, I'd like to say that tomorrow John is taking part in the conference that is organized by the High School of Economics. The conference is called Smart Cities, Energy and Transport. So there'll be more discussion of transportation issues. If you're interested in that, I have unfortunately only one copy, but I'll leave it. I'll let it circulate so you can have a look. And if you're interested, please join us tomorrow. There are contact details where you can find more. Thank you very much, and thanks once again, John, for coming. It's to you. We have 14 minutes of lecture, maybe 50, and then questions. But you can also interrupt if you have a question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I do it without the mic, or should I need it?
You should do it because we have online
streaming. Oh, sorry.
For people to hear.
I hate it to have this mic thing. Okay. My name is Johan Dipens. I'm CEO of Mobicom. Now the good news is that we had a party last Friday because we were 30 years in business. And when I was 22, I started it. No idea what to do, but so that's good. What you can see on the back a little bit is mobility, traffic, and transport. That's the area where we're working for, and we talk a lot about mobilist. So I will talk also a lot today about mobilist. What is it? To give you a little bit idea what we are doing is that we work a lot in the Netherlands, of course, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, everything. Also a lot for the European Commission on research, and more internationally, the last 10 years. So I'm advisor of London, I'm advisor of Boston, a lot of Canadian cities like Calgary and Ottawa. Mexico City, we did some things. We just finished Albania. I'm lost now with what's the hoofdstad van Albania? Tirana, sorry. I get a little bit older, 30 years in business, so sometimes I forget things. So if you have a question, please ask, because I will tell a little bit about what we're doing in the Netherlands, but also a little bit thinking about mobility. What does it mean? What can we do with it? So if things are uncertain, or if you think he's speaking nonsense, please make it clear to me that you think it that way. For me, which one? This one? I work always with Apple, so okay. Yeah, that one. Okay. Now for me, it's good to be back. Last June, I think it was my first visit here in Moscow, also on a conference, and also I talked with the ministry about their Green Lane project, cycling through parks. So I get a little bit a sight on Moscow, what is happening. And for me, I think when we talk about mobility, it's not only about cars, but it's also about the city life, because mobility is important for you, because if you can't move, and if you can't do anything on the street, then you have an empty city. And I think this is a part of a city, what is happening. Because I also saw other things in Moscow at that time, and I'm very happy that the traffic lights tell me how much time I will wait, and I was shocked the first time as pedestrian, 127 seconds. And then I thought, okay, it's green light. but then are nearly got hit by a car, and because it seems that also the cars had green. So that's for me a little bit a surprise. But not only bad news, because on the picture below you see your new psychopaths. I was very happy with that. But I also saw something interesting, because I will tell it more to you. I think that you have a great subway system here. And what you also see is that the last mile and the first mile always. That's mobility. You step out of your subway and think, oh my god, I still have to go 1,000, 1,500 meters. And those little scooters are very interesting. I will tell you more about cyclists that we have in the Netherlands, but this is easy because you take it in your hands. And it's the same family, I think. Where I was a little bit shocked sometimes is pedestrian routes. They cross the railway without anything. So it was an important route for people to go shopping. When I look at that, I think, oh my god, this can be true. So there are some things that go very good in Moscow at the moment, I think, step by step. And some things I would like to change. I will make it clear to you. Because I will go through a few parts if you talk about mobility. And the first thing, of course, is cars. I wrote a little article about my visits to Moscow in the business part from Traffic newspaper in the Netherlands. And I said it was beautiful, but my traveling by plane was faster than my last miles with car in Moscow at that time. And in fact, we had it also this evening. So sometimes you can say that there's a heart infarct in your city sometimes when you use the car. When I showed this picture in the US, they said, which city is this? Is it Boston? Is it New York? So the choices that you make are in fact worldwide made. And what I say in a lot of countries, you see that there are perhaps 2 or 4 generations lost everything about other things like bicycles and public transport, but they're just thinking in cars. That's also in the education part. We got a lot of civil engineers who are just trained to design highways. And suddenly they work in the city and they think they still have to build highways. Then you get this kind of decisions. Because the interesting part here is that you see a lot of cars, but also they've made the choice of making a tunnel for pedestrians. So some people make choices in a network, and I will talk more about that. It's normal, it seems to be normal, that if we have traffic, that people die in traffic. And I saw, when I was searching a little bit, that in 2012, we had 28,000 people were killed in traffic. And what I tell is not killed, but they don't come home anymore. And I think it's a worse thing, that if people you love, they don't come home anymore. So we got some actions that we call Vision Zero, and that everybody should stay alive. Because imagine that we have a company, and we make a product for the whole world, and we say we had a beautiful year, but it's a pity that few people died because of our product, traffic. Have you any idea how many people die on the world each year in traffic? Do you know it? Who's a guess? How do you think? You never can be wrong, huh? How much?
5 million.
How many?
5 million.
5 million?
Yes.
More than 10.
10 million? Oh, you have a very dark view on the world then. Huh? It's 1.25 million people around the whole world. Every year. That besides, people get heavy injured. I think that can be 100 million, 150 million something. So 1.25 million around the globe, they don't come home anymore because of the traffic. So I think it's a reasonable job, and we say, okay, we want to bring some safety to the world, and how do we do that? And I will tell you more about that. I didn't have the time to find everything about Russia, so sometimes I mix it a little bit with other information, but I think sometimes you can translate it to the situation here. Air quality and health is an issue more and more and more, and also from traffic. You see sometimes this kind of cars. This is a picture from Canada. And I know something about Canada because we have an office there. But we know that 32% of the Canadians live within 100 meters of major roads. They got so much space there, and still 1/3 of the people live near a major road. Idiot. It's also planning, urban planning. They got 21,000 people dying because of air pollution in Canada. The lungs especially. And also 1/3 of Canadian schools is located in zones of high traffic. So what I will try also to bring you today is not only mobility, but also where you want to go to and where you plan it. Those two things are very connected with each other. Travel cost. I'm sorry, I don't have the information from Russia, but I have the information from Canada and from the US and also from Europe. But imagine if you got $100 in the US, what do you think that people spend on mobility from that budget? What their income is? So you get $100. What do you spend of it?
20.
Huh?
Maybe 20.
20? Yeah. If you look at your budget and you think about it, is that 20% of your whole budget, your income is spent on mobility?
The purchase of the car,
Yeah,
insurance.
the whole thing.
30.
30. Higher? Lower? Oh, we go for 30? You are a very dark view here on the world. Especially it is, in Canada it's $18 of every $100 people earn. In the US you have areas where it's $25. In the Netherlands at the moment it's $17 of euros, and it was 20 years ago it was 9. So there is a big increase of what we spend on mobility, and this is the fancy car, it is that. But we know that especially the Americans, they spend more on mobility than they spend on food. And you can see it because they can't cook. So what is the issue? If you talk about mobility, just mobility on the move, going to somewhere is a basic need. You have to breathe, you have to feed yourself, you have to need the home. But mobility is also a basic need. If you can't do it, those flowers are called with us geraniums, then we say you are behind the geraniums, behind the flowers. So you're old, you hope that your children will come to you once in a week, bring you some food, etc. And because otherwise you will die. But you don't have mobility to the end of your life, in fact. And the interesting part is, and I showed this picture, this is from here, from Moscow, nothing wrong with it. But in fact, the choices that we make together have an influence on the way you use mobility, you think about mobility, you make choices in mobility. Because sometimes you can make choices we're not aware of. This is a picture from the Netherlands, I will show it later also. But this mother takes his child on the back of her bike into the traffic. Now you can say she's stupid, and you can say, but she also knows that it is a good way to go from A to B, and she also knows that it is fast, and she also knows that it is safe. But there are a few choices. Personally, I don't think that in a lot of cities in the US, but also in Russia, you don't see that much. Because people think, this is my baby, I should take care of it. But also, if you have destinations, you also make your choices. This is the city of Utrecht, and we are working for this city, and we had a discussion about mobility and their identity. And the identity of Utrecht, we came out, is that they are a host of the Netherlands because they're the city center, and they found out that 80% of the people walking in that city were people from outside the city, were visitors. So they said, we are the host for them. So we make it pleasant for them. They come by train, they come by car, but normally they walk and they spend money. They found out every 20 minutes people stay longer as average. They spend 200 million a year extra in their city. So that's good for economics. So sometimes you can combine mobility with something else than just pleasure, but also with economics. If it is a pleasure to walk there, to sit there on the terrace, then you spend money. So it has some influence. It's more than just going from A to B. For me, mobility means that people can participate in society. I think that's a very important part of it. But also not only the guy from 30 in the best years who can do everything what he wants. He can go on the bike, he can walk, but also kids from 8 and also elderly people from 80 or older. And what we do normally is that we design our cities for guys from 30. Because they can run. When the traffic light here, I think I had 15 seconds green as pedestrian. That means if I'm a little bit older, I don't make it to the opposite side. Other part is the right to come home. I think that we should fight for it, make choices for it, that people come home every day. And because that is the worst thing that can happen again. And I think 1.25 million, also 28,000 people here in Russia each year. It's too much and should be zero. A good system gives you independency. You do not have to rely on other people. I don't have a car, can I go with you? But you can make your choices even if you're 8 or 80. That means that accessibility of public transport or the system is for elderly people is very important. Because if you're a little bit blind and you can't go into the bus, then in fact you get behind the flowers. Or you have to ask other people, can I do something? Can you do something for me? And it should be sustainable. I think that's clear. All the energy that we use for mobility is a lot. All the oil, fuel, building our cars, electricity, accus, everything is very big. When you think about the world and mobility, you have to know that we think that in 2030, 2025, 75% of all the people living on this earth will be living in a city. We all come together. Now, that's good, but it also means that we have to make choices. And what I understand is that we've got 12 million inhabitants here in Moscow, formal, and around 60 million informal. But it will grow, and that means also that you have to make choices. Is Moscow expanding? That means that you get much more distances to go, but we talk about it later. But this is very important. So I think that my company will go for 100 years more, because there's a lot of work to think about. When you look at cities, a lot of cities around the world, and you think about mobility, the mobility market, if you got here 50 million people, how many trips a day is that, you think? Have you any idea? How much?
More than 10 million, sure. Maybe 15.
Got 50 million people.
20.
How many trips do they make a day together?
20 million.
100 million. Because you also walk to the shop. You do more things. The average part is that there will be 100 million trips. That's the market, if you look at it as a mobility market, today in Moscow. And those people have, in fact, at the moment, I think, 3 choices. They can walk, they can take the car, or they take public transport. Or is there more? Do you have more choices? Yeah. Huh? What? Bicycle? Yeah. But is that for the average Moscovian, or how do you call people here? Moscovich. Everybody make that choice? They go on the bike? I think it's just in the start. I think for 90% of the people, these are the choices they can make. And for 10%, they are the innovators and they do something more. We just did a study in the Netherlands about creating a new method for designing the traffic system in our systems. Because what we found out in the Netherlands that we had too much bikes. It was not nice anymore. So we thought we'd do something else because it's different. I tell you 2 things about it. This is a long story, but and a very good story, of course. But if you look at kinetic energy, that means safety, coming home. It means how hard you're hit by something. And of course, it's the speed of things and it's the weight of things. And you have to be careful because you see on the left side, you see that it's increasing with 10 each time. And you also see the speed. But in fact, this is the menu card that we have in the Netherlands right now. It's a lot, you can see. But also interesting that there is some organizing in it. You can see here that if you walk to each other, 2 pedestrians hit each other, that's nothing. You say sorry and it's over. And you can imagine through this whole way that if you're hit by a truck, you don't say sorry anymore. Or you're knocking on somebody's door, we say. But you see that there's a lot, and we worked with it and we thought about it, and in fact we came with something else, that is, we need to start to think in families, because that simple menu card that you saw is too simple. It's coming more and more and more. And if you look at the innovation side in the whole world, especially all the new electric engines, they bring all kinds of new modes in the coming 10, 20 years. That's interesting. So we say we got in fact 6 families. The pedestrian, when you sit on a terrace, we say you're a parked pedestrian. You sit there and you stay there. You can walk, you can run. If you look at the bicycle family, an interesting thing I think is that it is lighter than 35 kilos and smaller than 1.5 meters. That's the way we thought about things. So we organized everything in weight and in the how big it is. So bicycles, you got normal bicycles, you got inline skates, cargo bikes, e-bikes, speed pedelecs, road bikes. In the light motors vehicles, you see everything a little bit with the engine in it. Mopeds, e-cargo bikes, rickshaws, scooters, etc. But it's interesting that you can think in families. Because what we see in the Netherlands right now is that every day we get something new. The hoverboard, you have seen it? You know what the hoverboard is? Yeah? In the Netherlands, our ministry said it's not allowed. There's no steer on it. There's no brake on it. It's dangerous. But we said it's interesting because if you say it's okay because it has a brake and it has this and it has that, so it's perfect. Then we say okay, it's 10 kilos, so it's a bicycle family, so you can organize in this way, and also your regulation can be connected with it. But we start to think in families. And that means that the menu card of your restaurant who serves mobility is increasing. And that's the real truth, that is increasing. And that a lot of governments don't follow the speed of that new menu card. Because they have a problem. Because if you get more vehicles, you can say both are vehicles, so they should share a road. But there's a but on this one. Because with the kinetic energy means that lorry truck behind this cyclist, you never survive it. And there's something interesting about cyclists, especially female cyclists, a lot of females here. But in London, the cyclists get increasingly popular. And if you look at the Thames right now in the morning, more cyclists cross the Thames than cars. But safety is a real issue in the moment in London. Because 9 of the 10 people who are dying in London are females. 9 of 10. So we did a lot of discussion about it, and what is now, why? Huh? And we think that, to be honest, that females follow the rules, and the men don't. So the men survive, and the females, especially with big lorries, when they go to the left, there's a real problem at the moment. Because what you see is that the kitchen in which we make those menus on the mobility market, those kitchen is the same as yesterday, or will be the same tomorrow. And that means your urban space is not getting bigger. So we have to make choices. That's the interesting part that we try to bring to the rest of the world. If you get cyclists, and suddenly first you had pedestrians and the car, now somewhere you have to find a place for that cyclist. Where and how? And a lot of people in the car don't like it. So you get a battle between good and bad, etc. But we say, in fact, everybody is a mobilist. Because if you learn people how to bike, they know what they can expect from a cyclist. But also they can make the right choice for that move they're going to make at that point. Because sometimes the car is perfect. I also have a car. But sometimes my bike is perfect. And sometimes my e-bike is perfect. And I had a time a scooter, this little thing. But my wife hated it, and everybody hated it, so I'm not allowed anymore to go on it. So can we make the right choice? I think that's the issue. Because sometimes you have dreams, and this is a dream from American designers in the 50s about cars. And you can think, it's a beautiful car, what I see there. But the interesting part in this drawing is what is happening here in that car. Because they already have thought about the self-driving car. It's quite hot at the moment. But if you look at the pictures at that time, they already designed it. And they already thought about it, how to go on the way, etc., what's happening there. So it took 60, 70 years before we realized that we could change it. Because now in the Netherlands, this is hot. You see our Minister of Transport driving in a self-driving car. You know perhaps the YouTube movies with blind people. We go to the McDonald's to get something in the self-driving car. Even the Audi has one that goes faster as a driver with the Formula 1 or Formula 2, how you call it. So it's coming. How and what is coming? And we also involved in some discussion about that, and I think we have to be very careful with it, especially in the city. Because if we get a generation of civil engineers with it, then you're not allowed to walk on the street anymore. Everybody has to use his self-driving car now, and that's something we don't want from health, I think. So we get a new way of travel, but also I'm warning majors about this one. You can build parking lots a lot, and you get a lot of money from it, but it is possible that within 10, 20 years you get this, because that's cars driving home itself. So there's no need for parking lots anymore. That's the interesting part of it. And also the part of it is, do we have to buy it for myself, or can I hire one constantly? So make it individual or collective. That are choices somewhere we have to make later on. The mobility market and the mobilist, you can frame it in different ways. And I try to frame it in a way that I think can be interesting for everybody. Active, independent, a pedestrian. You can walk, you can go, but you are active on the move. Active with accessoires. And that are the cyclists, the rollerblades, the scooters. Very sustainable, because we don't need energy anymore. Passive with active behavior. You sit in a car, but you have to drive, you have to be careful what's happening outside. It's a moped, it's a car. We also have scootmobiles in the Netherlands, so everything is in fact an electric wheelchair. Cars, electric wheelchairs, something with more engines in it. And you got passive with passive behavior. That's public transport. It's interesting if you think about the self-driving car that's coming up. In fact, it means that it moves from this side to that side. So that means in fact that it's making its own grave, the car, in fact, because it's getting collective transport. So that's interesting if you talk about it later on. But what you see in a lot of discussions and areas is that we got that active independent, we got passive with active behavior, but especially active with accessoires. Perhaps you have them, but your urban system is not really designed for it, not really ready for it. That's where I scan that kitchen and how you make your choices in the urban space. And you can see here a picture from the Netherlands. A mother driving her 2 kids. It's very popular. You're very modern if you have those kind of things in the Netherlands at the moment with us. So we got a new problem, parking problem. Where do you put those things? But it's really hot. Also, if you talk about urban space, you can also talk about space index. As we know, a pedestrian doesn't take that much space. That's here. And this is the fact pedestrian take. This is the place all those people, if they are on the bike, need. This is the space you need with a car, and this is the public transport. In fact, this is your problem here. A lot of people drive in their car, and in fact that's good for them, but you don't have that much space, and you have to organize it, etc. So if Moscow is growing in the future, perhaps to 20 million people, you can't drive your car anymore. Or you have to destroy houses, etc. This choice is up to you, I think. Especially a lot of the generation here, you can make the choices in how you design your city, etc. So this is very important, I think. And in fact, in the world, there's something happening. This is a card from the Netherlands. And interesting to know for you is that this is the distances that we make each day. That we know in the Netherlands that 70% of all movements are shorter than 7.5 kilometers. And I think it's here the same. So if you think about that, that's 70 million of those trips I talked about. 100 million is the market. 70 million is shorter than 7.5. That's some interesting information, because you can perhaps walk. Perhaps that means that for the biker is a market. But in the Netherlands we got This is walking. You can say 1/3 is cycling and other 1/3 is with the car. And there's something happening. I don't know if you have them here, but we got e-bike in the moment, last 5-6 years. And e-bike means that you still have to make your own movements with only your own power, but you get a little bit of wind in your back, we call it. That little bit, it's easy. And it means you still need 90% of your energy. But we got a lot of wind in the Netherlands, so as far as it is perfect. We can organize it, that's always in our bag. And especially those distances, it is changing. And you can say it's going from equal to 3 for the bike and 2 for the car. So it is changing. More people on the bike. That's the reason why we did the study. The Romans, a long time ago, 2,000 years ago. Have you any idea why I showed this picture? What do we have in common with the Romans, you think, at that time? I've got other clothes, I know, but...
Good roads.
Other?
Good roads.
Roads?
Good ones.
Good one. Yeah. Now, we did some study, and it's called the Brever Law. And in fact, it means that we spend average the same time on mobility as the Romans. That's a law. The law is that it doesn't matter what is changing, time, transport modes, etc., how fast you go, but it is around the world, it's 70 to 90 minutes per day. That's interesting, because we also know that if you spend more time on mobility, you get a little bit dark. You spend too much time, you don't have time for yourselves, for your family, etc. And I was in Mexico City, and somebody was living on the outskirts of Mexico City. That's 22 million, so nothing here. And she had to make a ride for 3 hours with public transport each day to her work in the city center and back, because she couldn't sell the house. But she was very depressed, because she can't do anything more than work in her mind. So that's the interesting part. If you are designing a city, you have to think about that. But it means, or you have to go very fast into the city, or you bring the activities towards the people. Why are all the jobs in the city center? Why not more on the outskirts? Why you can spread it? You have a beautiful subway system, goes very fast, expand it. Don't put people in the car while they are in the queue. I give you some topics a little bit to think you a little bit otherwise about mobility. I think that's important. That when tomorrow when you get up, you think, oh my God, what do I choose on the menu? But you have to realize that urbanization is increasing. That fossil fuels are becoming more scarce. That households spend more and more on mobility. Obesitas is a real problem. And we get older. I think that's also something. So not really, don't design only for people who are 30, but also think about people who get 100. We know that every girl born today in the Netherlands will get 10 years older than the average right now. That is something. If you've got questions, raise your hand and ask them. Now I can tell you a little bit about the Netherlands, because that's the place I'm very proud of course, and it's our backbone and things about things. Amsterdam, ever been in Amsterdam? Yeah? Why? Why you go to Amsterdam? To smoke pot, I know, but some more? Yeah. Now, in the old days, in the 60s around, we had all people go to work. And one of the interesting things at that time was that work was near your home. It's quite simple life, in fact, if you look at it. So completely the Brever Law. Everything was near you. So we had 75-80% of people went on their bike to work. We can show you pictures and movies around this. Crazy what happened then. But also we got the car, and also we got livable cities. And also we got child-friendly cities. Because one of the things, and I don't know how it's here, but when I talk in the US, I always say, your kids, they play in the backyard. But our kids, they play in the front yard. We know our neighbors, we know our street, we talk with them. And last Saturday, I had surprisingly a barbecue with my street. Because we live on the street. I think that's important, you know your people around you. But that is a lot of cities. Sometimes it's very strange, but it does happen. I don't know here how it is, but especially with North America, everybody is behind their curtains. And one of the things in the Netherlands, when you have been there in Amsterdam, we don't have curtains for our windows. So even at night you can look in our living room. Nothing to see, but we got nearly 70 million people, 22 million bikes. So that's a basic ingredient for mobility. 7.6 million cars and some buses, trams and trains. That's the way we do it. So we are born on the bike. Your mother takes you already on the bike everywhere. On your way to school, I think these things are the next problem in Amsterdam. Everybody wants a cargo bike and put your kids in it. But your first serious test, your exam, is about traffic. When you're 11 years old, you have the theoretical exam, but also you go out, get examined how you ride your bike. 99% of the kids get their exam, pass their exam. Sometimes they just do stupid things, but normally everybody passed the test. It's not a status thing, because have you any idea? I will show you a movie. Oh, we have no sound here. Any idea who this girl is? What?
Maybe the rich girl of Netherlands.
Yeah.
Someone from the royal family.
Exactly. So our king made this picture of the film movie and puts it on the YouTube. He's just a normal guy, happy with his kid that's going to school. So she rides here on her own, but we know that after 100 meters you get surrounded by 4 or 5 cars. Just a normal guy. So your marriage, you do it in your cargo bike, bring your bride to the town hall. And also, it's normal for us that our funerals go this way. No, that's not true. This is an exception. So creating a living city, you see this is Amsterdam. Around the corner you were smoking, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay, yeah. But a lot of our cities, they were never built for cars. They were built for pedestrians, they were built for horses. And sometimes you can destroy a city by destroying all the houses, then you can make some space. But like Amsterdam, not that many people have a car at the moment. Because it's very expensive, you don't have the space. If you want to park your car, you have to pay a lot for it. And it works, we found out. So share systems are very popular here. But everybody wants to live there. And we sell parking lots there for 100,000 euros at the moment. So you can influence your market. That's the story of Amsterdam. But if you go back to the 70s, we really had an increase in people dying in traffic. It went up to more than 3,500 for us. It was at that time, everybody felt it. There were less people. I think in the 70s we had around 10 million people, 11 million people. So it was very daily issue for everybody. But also we are building and building new tunnels, new highways, etc. So, but there was some new movement with us that we say we don't accept it anymore. I was a little kid at this time, so I had no influence with it. But especially one thing was interesting that it was called an action group called Stop Children Murder. And they were very hard. They played it very hard at that time. But they had success because we made the policy. But they also had at that time, we had the oil crisis. We didn't have fuel enough, so we had car-free Sundays. So there were 2 things happening at that time. We got a discussion about safety, and we got a discussion about fuel, energy. At this time, I think in the Netherlands started, you can say at this time, a sustainable movement. Also on all levels, ministry, government, etc. But it was a great time because we could bike on the highway. It was perfect for all the kids. This is the area at that time also, the 70s, where we started our woon-earth. You ever heard about it? But that means that we made little streets, we designed them for pedestrians, and the car had to slow down there. And to be honest, there was my street where I was born, historical site. And nowadays, it's this way, and It's still a woonerf. Dit was the first woonerf in the Netherlands, designed for 15 kilometers an hour. You hate it when you go into it with your car. It's all bumps and movement, etc. But it works, we found out, because kids can still play on the street. That's what we think is important. So it went down in the Netherlands. You can see from more than 3,000. In 2010 we touched, I think, the 700, and now this 625, something around that. A little bit stabilizing, so we have a discussion about it. All discussions about safety, I think this one is very important, because it means the chance that you can survive in traffic. Because you have to know that if you are hit by a car with 30, you got 85% chance that you survive. You stand up and walk away. If you are hit by a car with 50, it's, I have to be good, yeah. It's about 80% chance that you will die in that accident. So it's a very strange thing that we design cities and we accept cars to go 50. Because it means that if something is happening, it's the end. It's quite simple. And also we see that with 50 you have to make traffic lights, you have to do everything. We know with 30 it's much easier. In fact, we found out that if you design a city for 30, everything with a car, you're faster at home than with 50. So your losing time at intersections is much lower. But nobody believes it, but it is true. But we have common sense that we have to go fast with all those horses under us, and we have to move. In fact, this is our system at the moment in the Netherlands, based on what I said before, that we mix traffic when it is 30, we create a segregation if it is 50, and also it depends on the volumes and the speeds of things. It's quite simple, but it works. So this is the woonerf today. We talk about complete streets. I will show you a short movie about the Dutch, especially how they shop. Yeah. Don't know if we show the whole movie, but it was still the same. But we don't have sound, I think. And you have to watch. I will talk a little bit with it. You have to know that our city centers are more and more car-free at the moment, so we design it for pedestrians and cyclists. I will shut my mouth for a few moments. This is the difficult part, taking your beer. Young and old. They say that the bike is our iron horse. You put everything on it. It goes the whole way. You see a lot of people coming back to you, but it gives a little bit of feeling where I'm talking about. Because if you have expired in Amsterdam, so you know a little bit. Not hit by a cyclist?
2 times.
2 times?
Yeah.
That's
We
normal.
had a fight with one of the guys.
You had a fight?
Yeah.
And who won? You.
Drive away.
Yeah. Amsterdam is not a typical Dutch place, to be honest. We call it a museum, but there are a lot of cyclists. And somebody said to me, when you design for cars, you're designing for ganzen? Goose. They follow everything you do. They follow the leader. But if you design for cyclists, you design for sparrows. They do never what you expect to do. And that's what you find out in Amsterdam. I go to the next one. At the moment, what we started with in the Netherlands was sustainable safety, we call it. At the moment now we are working on what we call Vision Zero. So that nobody dies in traffic anymore. So that what we saw in the Netherlands, we made the big steps by segregation, etc. But now we have to move forward, and that's very difficult, to be honest. And also not only infrastructure, but also behavior, education, and also your way of law. So this is in fact what we have right now. Very technical. I will go faster with. But in fact, for the discussion now is collector road and residential road, 30 and 50. That's our main design in the city. You already saw. So what you see is that we make networks, and about especially the car network, but between it, the wide areas, I think that is your living area, and you should design it how big you make it, because you should base it on your activities. What do you want? Do you want that kids can go on their own to school? Last time I was here in Russia, we had a discussion about with people, and they say, yeah, I don't feel comfortable when my daughter walks on her own to school because you have to cross 2 major roads. So there's a discussion about this network that you make. Where are your activities, your schools, and what do you want for people to do by themselves? School is an important thing, I think. Play outside, my opinion, very important. Indication for the wealth of your city. When I was the first time in Canada, I was in Nova Scotia, I asked after 3 days, I said, where do you have kids? Where are they? Because I was out on the street and I never saw kids. I know you have a lot of snow here, they also have snow, but we have snow, everybody's playing outside. Nobody. Especially the 4th day, there was a strike in public transport and all the parents were walking with the kids outside. But that's something that's very important. Also shopping, and I think elderly people, can they go on their own out, yes or no? Or especially as a kid from 8, is it too dangerous outside? So that are decisions that you make for people and by people. What you also found out in the Netherlands is that all those people with a car, if you are sitting in a car, you want to ride, you want to go fast. And we had some experience, how big can you make those living areas? How long are you able to go 30? And what we found out, we call it the staircase of Hans Monderman, what we found out is that it's around 6 minutes that you can go 30. When it takes longer, then you get a little bit aggressive, depressed, and you're full of energy and you want to go. We also found out that after 9 minutes, you are allowed to go 50 and 80. And after really 15 minutes, you should be on the highway. Otherwise, you get nuts in your car with all those horses. So in fact, we found out that looking with the car, that there is some space for us to design things. Because this is quite long, 6 minutes. That means that you can do it for 50, 102 kilometers. That's a big area, especially if you can go 2 ways. So in fact, it is enough to design your city with. So I show you some pictures from a little town, but it gives a little bit an impression about how we designed those networks. Because this is the car network, and you can see that the distributor roads, they go to this area. And this is our traffic calming neighborhoods, 30, 15 kilometers. All what is green is that speed. And it is designed in that way. You cannot go faster because then you get seasick in your car. So it's really designed. This is the old city center, car-free area, and the 30 kilometers is a little bit special design. But then you think that you have everything, then you can see here that it is those target groups. But also this is our cycle network. And the cycle network is completely different from a network from the car. It goes together with the car, but sometimes it goes straight to those residence areas. But it's based on where people are going through. Within, you can say those short distance, 7.5 kilometers. Now, some pictures from the street. This is first separation. It's not the best thing we have because we normally like more separation. This is one of our first projects in Canada, by the way, Ottawa. It's not the way we design in the Netherlands, but within the law of Canada, we can design this kind of things. When I go to the Netherlands, people say, "You're nuts, what is this?" Huh? But I went a few months ago with a lot of majors from Canada to the place, and everybody was, "Wow, this is what we want." Because there was nothing here for a cyclist. And I talked with a lady who uses it every day at the moment, and she said, "I go with a smile to my work." So that means if you design properly for people, they get happy about it, and they talk with the neighbors about it, with the family, and you get more and more people using it in fact. But you're not ready with one cycle track. You have to build networks, you have to build residential areas, etc. This is what you can see here in the Netherlands, a little bit a bigger road with two-sided traffic. But also what is very important, we found out in safety, is that what we need 90 degrees. You have to look each other in the eyes. If you're a pedestrian, you can look at the driver in the car in his eyes, then you know one thing, you've seen me. And he should be really a fool if he hits me. That's something that you feel safe with. So everything what we design normally is that we try to move everybody in that 90 degrees, not 45, because then you can't see anybody. And this is also interesting. If you get more cyclists in your streets, there will be some interaction between the car and the cyclist. What you hear is that there are, in fact, 3 kids riding together. By law, it is forbidden because you only are allowed to drive with 2 people. But cyclists are social people. If you are together with 3, you don't run behind each other. You want to talk with each other. That's what's happening here. But with this kind of strokes, where the drainage is in, he is in fact putting my story, but normally people come more into the center of the street. And if you're coming more in the center of the street, then the car driver sees you and has to interact with you. So what we saw with streets where we did this, that sometimes the speed of the car was, before that it was around 50, 55 sometimes, and it went down to 35 without extra things made on the street. So it's very important in my story here is that interaction that you can arrange between users of the urban space can be interesting and can help you. This is Amsterdam. Not that interesting. Home zone, I think, at the moment. Now, this is something in your urban space. You have always a discussion with parked vehicles, parked cargo bikes, etc. And sometimes what you see is that we make it very clear that it is a parking space. What we did here is that, in fact, the pedestrian zone, we raised also the parking lots with it. So as when you park your car, you realize that you are entering the pedestrian area. So sometimes you can play with the urban space without telling to the users what's happening. And sometimes they feel uncomfortable, but that's what you want at that moment. So you want to make clear here that this is a shopping area, that people can cross the street. And that when you park your car, you are entering that area. I go a little bit faster. It's an older one of me, but I think still very interesting. It is in Drachten. We call it shared space. Ever heard about the movement of shared space? Somebody? No? Now, shared space is that we say this is a very traffic area. It is the start of the city center of Drachten. Now, a place you never heard of, you never will come. But this is where the action is. And it was a very nasty place with a lot of buses also, around 80,000 vehicles, and hopeless. We made it this way. This is the same place at the moment. And in fact, it is what we call a meeting point right now for the people. Because when they go together to the city center, they say, okay, I see you at this square. It's different space. We also made some changes for the cyclists, because they are the one now who go in the space of the pedestrian. They feel it, that there's something different there. We make it quite narrow for cars. And one thing is interesting here, that you see the water here. If there's more traffic on the roundabout here, the water goes higher to make more noise. We want to overcome the noise of the cars to make it clear that it's an urban space. So you can play with a lot of things. That's the interesting part. This other area in Delft, where there was a normal intersection with trams, with everything, and we changed it into this one. Big roundabout with priority lanes for public transport on it. But also the interesting part here is that I will repeat it every day, that we have here the 90 degrees. So everything is designed that you see each other in the eye. The only difficulty here is that we got a lot of cyclists here, a lot of students. So in fact the biggest problem here right now is that it is a two-way cycle track here. And it's too much for car drivers, we found out. They can follow it, they come left, right, can I go? Huh? And there's accidents happen there at the moment. One of the news items in the Netherlands is the raised cycle roundabout. So you can imagine that also here, if you go to those places where you see there's a lot of car traffic, what do? And there's not enough capacity to do everything here. Maybe we do tunnel, do we this? And but in fact, it was quite simple and not that expensive. They raised the platform for the cyclist area. So make two level. It's very interesting, beautiful design. Welcome in the new century. I talked a lot, and you don't have that much questions, so that means that I'm not interesting, or I tell a very clear story. But you have to know that if you talk about mobility, in my vision there are three things. You talk about the mobilists, that are the people, they make the choice of what they do. You talk about activities, where do you put them? Transport modes, that will change in the future, but you also talk about infrastructure. When people talk about mobility, they always talk only about infrastructure. They forget all this. And I think that the goal for the coming century is that menu card is getting bigger and bigger, and we have to organize it. We have to translate it to all those four parts of this slide. So we think about other ways. You can constantly think that you have to build, and build. But sometimes you build a new bridge, or you make the roads wider, then you see that new traffic is coming. So we were thinking, can we change it the other way? Can we find ways that we can get rid of some traffic? At the moment, and I was with the first mindsets and discussions with it. What we are doing, we pay people to stay out of the queue. We say, we saw that you were there every day, last few months, but I pay you 200 euros if you stay out of it, if I don't see you in the morning, in the afternoon. And I can tell you it works. It's much cheaper than building roads, and people are changing their way of behavior. They stay home, they quit from job, they find other ways, in fact. And we have seen it on bridges, where constantly was a queue, that we get rid of 5% of the traffic and everything goes. Of course, it's a system, because if the queue is gone, then other people think, wait a minute, the queue is gone. There's an interesting story between Utrecht and Amsterdam with the highway. People drove too fast there. So there was a lot of police enforcement on it. So it went from 120 to 100 kilometers an hour average. All the queues were gone, because if you go slower, you don't have a queue. But also the trains got empty, because everybody found out that the queue was gone, so they took their car again. So there is some systems. It's not black and white. There is a system between things, and you can change it when you want to.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yep.
How do you check people who avoid traffic jams?
Sorry, what?
How do you check people who avoid traffic jams?
We know the license plate,
Okay.
and we have cameras. So in those rush hours, every car is checked from the license plate, and if we see you, you don't get your money. If we don't see you,
Yes. Thank you.
so you can take another car, but that's the system now. Okay.
Well, why not just do as London did and just charge people who do drive during that time?
Yeah. That's the other system. Yeah. But now we are people putting in. We give them a carrot to go.
How many kids does average Amsterdam have?
How many?
Kids. An average Amsterdam have.
Children.
Children.
the real city of Amsterdam has around 700,000 people, and I think that is about 15%, so that it will be around 120,000 kids.
How do they shop with kids?
Yep.
On the bike?
Yep.
On the bike?
On the bike.
Shopping?
Yep.
I cannot imagine.
It wasn't a film, but you didn't show the part.
No kids there.
Oh, I will show. I will end when I'm ready. I show the movie again, and then part of it, and then you see some kids also on it.
But honestly, it's
My kids,
difficult.
yeah, my kids when they are were three. I got 4 kids. They are much older right now, but then they learn how to bike in the street because the street is free for them. It's good for them. When they were 7, 8, when they're 6, 7, they go with me to school on the bike. And when they were 8, 9, they say, "Daddy, stay home. I want to do it on my own." And we trust the traffic system that we can do it. So our kids are very, young. Then we let them go. And that is, I think, very important. We also have programs for it. That we run a program that's called 80 Days Around the World. Kids from 11 years, they get a mobile phone with GPS on it. So we can track them, and we track the whole class, how much they bike. And what we do is that they bike together around the world in a competition with other schools. And what we see then, that 11 years old, they go the whole weekend, they go on the bike together to the big city. And instead of 80 days, they were in 55 days around the world. So yeah, it's in our system. But it's also easy to get it here in your system, but it should be safe, etc. Yeah, we can show you later on some pictures.
Summertime and the living is easy.
Yeah.
Fish are jumping, but do you have some idea about the winter?
Yeah. What's the
We
problem?
have about the half of the year of this season, and it's the picture completely different.
No.
Exactly.
No.
Including the infrastructure.
No.
Who is cleaning? Who is driving? And when it?
They also said, to be honest, I said no. But we don't have that much snow. That's quite simple. But we also, I'm part of some snow countries where the discussion is. And by Finland, by example, the use of cycling is lower, but it's still around 8% of the normal summer system. So if you have a good system of getting your cycle tracks snow-free, not snow-free, because the Finns, they keep around 2 centimeters of snow on the cycle tracks, but every day they make it a little bit loose, right, as you can have a good fit on it. And also Copenhagen got more snow, got also around 80-90% of the people still biking at that time. So is it part of cleaning? It is a part of system, but it's not mission impossible, to say so.
But what about the scooter model? Because, for example, the Paris primary use the scooter model.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the London have another model. It's bicycles.
Yeah.
By the way, the scooter, it's no need the parking place,
yep.
and we keep it and store it lightly.
Yep.
Okay. And when you drive the scooter, for example, as I drive scooter 8 years.
Yeah.
And I know it's impossible to drive scooter.
Yeah.
Minimally 4 months in the go.
Yeah.
I have no transport minimum 4 months in the go.
Yeah. I personally think that if you have your goods, but in fact, scooter is a part of the bicycle family, in my opinion. So if you make a network for that family, and we keep it clean, etc., because that's your issue. In the Netherlands, we now have the first heated cycle tracks. That means that we use warmth from the earth, pump it up, and we keep it clean in the winter. That's our first experiment, but now we got, I think, 4 or 5 kilometers from it. So we are searching how can we do it comfortably for the cycle family. Because your scooter, I think, is perfect because it takes less place than a bike. I love it. You are free, you can go everywhere. But we have to make infrastructure safe, comfortable for it, and also in the wintertime. I agree with it. And of course, it's not that far, because if there is some snow on it, then you're not comfortable, or you have to choose your tracks or do something else with it. Perhaps you need a winter scooter, a little bit bigger. But where I was in my story is that it's not about infrastructure, it's also about behavior. And I personally, this is one of my favorites, so I keep him. It's an older one, but I still like it very much. But you don't hear the, can the sound, where's my technical guy? He's gone? One moment. Because it's typical English, so you need, can we put it harder, the sound? Somewhere, somehow? We don't. Wait, I can do it. Yeah. Can I put it on? It's okay. Here. Yeah. You can put it on. Pick on this one.
Not a lot of people notice that you should treat a cyclist the way you treat a horse.
Bigger.
Space on the road.
That's the nice thing, you can sort of make jokes with things, because in Ireland they got a lot of horses, or Scotland they got a lot of horses. Right? And you know, when you're a pedestrian or have your car, you have to stay away from them. And this is exactly the same thing with the cyclist. There was an American journalist, he did some experiments. He was the man in Lycra on his bike in the US, but sometimes he changed himself in a beautiful wife, beautiful girl, with blonde hair, etc. And what he found out, that he was hit twice by a car in Lycra, and when he was a girl, everybody drove 1 meter away from him. Huh? So car drivers, they look at the situation and they make their choices. I go to the last part, so nearly time to go home. If you look at Moscow, this was it. I don't know the year, but I think about perhaps 400 years ago, somewhere, little town here, with more towns around it, and you change it all to this one, with a radial structure, beautiful metro system, just keep it that way. But also the last time I was here, we had discussions, and somebody his parents lived here, and I asked how often do they come to the city center? He said, I think 1 in 10 years. So it's a nonsense that Moscow is completely a city where you all have to go from A to B. And that is in fact the story that I try to tell you with some parts, and the lesson that you could take the coming years is that Moscow is built up of all kinds of parts where people live. Of course they go to the city center, but a big part of their life is in that area. There they have their friends, they sport, they go shopping, etc., etc. So we start to think, where do we start, is what are important living areas for us? What is those areas? Because I think that you live in an area, say about with 100, 200,000 people. There's somewhere where your basic parts, schools are, sports clubs are, etc. are. So if you start thinking that, then you cover 75% of all the movements. And that's interesting, because those bigger distances, they can optimize. With the breather law I told you, it has to go fast. So if a car can't go fast, then you make a choice that you optimize your subway system, by example. Because that is fast, and then you take your scooter. And then you fit into that system thinking, how it should be. Because you have to design for families, and you should make your choices in that one. I think personally, it's not my quote, but it's from Einstein. If you do what you always did, you get what you always got. So if you don't change your way you plan, especially, planning is very important, but also then make choices in your urban system, then if you don't make those kind of choices the way you should do here, then you will keep it the same thing, with a lot of cues. So it can be that this will be Moscow 2025, with a lot of new ways of moving, very high density of people. And with this picture, I thank you for your attention tonight. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we've almost run out of time because the library needs to close at 10. We'll maybe have 5 minutes for questions. So, who would like to ask another question? No? No? Yes, please.
When you get into the walk, are you getting sweaty because you're driving on the bicycle? How do you solve the problem of people getting sweaty when they're driving to the walk?
Sorry, trying to walk.
How people get sweat?
Yes, when people drive on the bicycle, especially when it is winter, it is cold, and people tend to get sweaty, right? So how do you solve this problem? Do you change when you arrive to the walk or not? Do you take showers?
We like a little bit sweat. Huh? That's our problem. No, normally, of course, when you go on your bike, you can get sweaty. That's something. But you see in the Netherlands that a lot of working places they have showers, so you change. But also there's also the big benefit of those e-bikes, electric bikes, that with the wind in your back you don't get sweaty anymore. There's a lot of people like it because then you can go to work easily. But also I think the average speed is quite low when you bike. Normal bike goes 15 kilometers an hour. You cannot go too fast.
Yes.
If you want to go faster and faster, then you get sweaty. I was in Australia, Melbourne, and in Perth, and Australian people are strange people when they go on the bike, because if it is shorter than 30 kilometers, they say, I'm not going to bike because it's not good for my condition. It doesn't help me. And so they go nuts on that bike, and they go sweaty, and they wear everything like it. They have a lot of showers, but they don't use the bike for the shorter distance. So you can make choices. But normally, everybody doesn't change in the Netherlands. Especially when you go fast to your work or something, then you can change or are on a race bike. Yeah.
More? Yes. Another question, please.
Okay, so when you're trying to improve your city with building new roads for bicycles, must be a certain argument with the city council, city government, because if you are bringing the bicycle, you are certain to minimize the car traffic, yes? So, but in this case, government is not much interested in bicycles, because what they need is they get a lot of money for fuel, they get a lot of money for selling the fuel into the cars which are traveling inside the town. So do you have any argues with the city council when you try to bring the bicycle into the town?
And normally we are working for those governments, right? So that mayor or somebody within it has their problems, because it is true that a lot of governments, they earn money from cars. Right? They get fuel, what you were telling, but they also have to spend a lot of money on the car, because if you got more and more car traffic, then you have to expand the network for that car. You have to expand the parking lots for those cars. In a lot of areas, if we count, by example, parking lots, okay, we have to go home. Is it that for one car, we need 6 to 10 parking lots in the whole country? We've counted that in the Netherlands at one point. And we know that we got around, was it 7 million cars? And we know that we have around 50 million parking lots. And if you build a parking lot in a parking garage, it's $25,000 per place. Now that's the things that those governments also are making. So at a certain level it's interesting, it means welfare, it means modern people, etc. But there is a level that the investments are getting too much. And then you can make choices, and then you gotta think, okay, can I do it another way? And then they find that market that a lot of people use their car for shorter distance. And then you're gonna think about, how do we do that? But the kitchen, what I told you, stays the same. So you have to make choices. With the long discussion in Calgary, oil city of Canada. Everybody earns their money with oil. I made a network for them about the city, about 30 kilometer zones in the cycle network. They had a discussion for 18 hours in the county with all the government people, the councillors. And they said yes, finally after 18 hours. And now they are building the cycle tracks. And we took it from the car, yes. But their city was only designed in the rush hour. So you had 6-7 lanes sometimes. For the rush hour it was also too much in my opinion. But after 10 o'clock, between 10 and 4 p.m. and after 6 p.m., nobody on the street. So you can make choices, and if you make them comfortably also in the economic benefits, because we know that cyclists for the economic regions, for shops, are much more interesting than cars. Because if you are on your bike, you smell the bakery. And we know that you are a trustful client, that you come back every week when you're on the bike. And with the car, we don't know where you're coming from. But it's a discussion, and it's for a lot of governments, it's a very difficult discussion. Because they got one push that the cars is the king, and they got the other push that they're killing their city. So, as some people with a vision, they make the right choice. Yeah.
That would really be the last one, and a short one.
Hope to make it short. Your presentation was mainly about car versus bicycle, but where the public transportation come into picture, because for a commuting city like Moscow with a lot of suburbs where people live and have to travel to the center like 20 kilometers, bicycle really is not an option. You have to bicycle is a transportation of the last mile. So maybe there are some ways to adapt a public transportation for usage of bicycles or transport like bicycles, like scooters maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I had only 1 hour. Because there's a whole this discussion about combination of transport modes, in fact. But I think is that you should expand your subway system, because I believe only in rail systems. I don't believe in buses. Especially when people can get out of the bus, they will get out of the bus. And I predicted for the Netherlands that within 10 years we don't have buses anymore. We should invest in rail systems because we know we can trust on them, etc., etc., etc. But it also means what we know from rail system is that people are willing to go further, to walk further to the stop, to go further from the stop, so that first mile is easier for them, in fact, to go on the move. And we also know that the combination of the bike and also scooters is the smartest part for people. The moment we have in the Utrecht, we have built parking lots for 30,000 bikes at the station. Big investment, and it's not enough. We need more place, in fact, for the bike. And we also saw that I did a study for the city central station of Amsterdam. That time with 4,000 parking lots around it. We have to build them inside. We said we think that you should build 20,000. And well, I was thrown out of the building as a stupid guy. Now they got 80,000 lots inside and it's still full. So what we see is that there's a big market. People would like to be independent to go to the station because they trust the rail system. So I think that you should combine smart modes with the rail system and get rid of buses. But I don't think it's a bus company here. But I think that you should invest. People like trust, and also investors with buildings, they trust the rail system because they know they will be there for 100 years. And we did a lot also bus systems. So we built something there, and suddenly somebody says, we stop with the bus system because nobody gets in. Okay, now then you are without a public transport system. And I think that we should build new systems also, because if you look at subway and train, it is always steel on steel. And there's a system now for nearly 200 years. So in fact, we should find new ways. And we had this high power.
Like Hyperloop, for example.
Yeah. But it's a new way. There are new things coming up. But I think this. I hope that I know that. Yes. Sorry for that gap in my presentation.
We have to stop here. Let me thank once again Jorn on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you all of you, and welcome to the conference tomorrow if you're available. Thank you, and see you next week.
Ja.